All right, so what's going on YouTube? Um, today's our live trading session. So I just wanted to kind of go over like what took place in the market after we had that interest rate decision. Oh, that's background noise. But yeah, anyway, so the past couple of weeks we've been talking about like the market being overall bullish. And our expectations were we were going to get some type of pullback. I didn't think that we would go as low as we did, but this was an area that we did identify like 2 weeks ago. You can see right here, I already have it marked up where it says April 16th. So this was that 9:45 candle, the 9:45 a.m. candle that we've been discussing and utilizing on the 15-minute time frame. Let's see if we can. Oh, it's too much data now. But yeah, so 9:45 a.m. candle. And I remember we mentioned this maybe like either last week or the week before. Well, it had to have been last week because this was 2 weeks ago. Um, that price may try to, because after it broke out of this area, normally what we've been seeing that happens when we create these zones with the 9:45 candle is that price will come back and test that. We saw it up here when price was creating these selling moves. Saw that price broke out, came back to continue to sell, even tested it a little bit lower, even came back up to this area, and then started that whole sequence all over again from this 9:45 candle. I stopped after the market started selling off. I stopped making like zones for the 9:45 candle, but this was an area that we had identified that price could probably push down to and buy up from. The signs that the market was showing was that it really wasn't trying to push down just yet. We knew that there was a possibility of price creating support around this area, which all this stuff is still support. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though it dropped down way more violent than, most traders expected, this area is still constituted as support. You can see anybody, if they would have had a pending order here, we'd have had the option to buy up. But like I said, identifying these areas before that the market could possibly return, even though it doesn't seem like it's going to return, that'll save you one, a headache, but also your profit or the amount of losses you're going to take. So even with me entering up here, I didn't over leverage and I knew that price wasn't really, I mean, I knew that price could possibly come back to this area. And then I had a buy zone just set here. But we were talking about this stuff last week. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure the market chopped up a lot of traders on this move. This basic correction, I wouldn't say basic, but this correction move, it wasn't really strong. It just seemed violent if, your lot size was high. But let's look at the pips. In a week's time frame, that's pretty practical for US 30. That's only 89,000 pips, not 89,000, 8,999 pips. So normally US 30 can go anywhere from like, I don't know, 17,000 to like 20,000 in a week. So that wasn't even really a strong move pushing down. So it just seems like that because again, if traders were, over leveraging or entering here and not actually factoring in that price could try to wipe out um wipe out a lot of late buyers, then you probably took a loss. I know a lot of traders got beat up this week. I mean, hell, I could have been one of them. But identifying these areas that the market could return to, save yourself a headache, man. So again, this is the 9:45 candle that we utilize. Like this isn't something that I don't think foreign exchange teaches you, but you got to have tools and resources that you can utilize to identify like forms of structure or where potential areas that the market can push down to. And as you can see, this is as clear as day support. I don't think that we'll have any type of like major like pullback like we've been having, I think this is the move that's going to take us up. It's obviously going to be like kind of slow. This was the move from this morning. And I think that around here, obviously, we'll try to play around, try to manipulate traders that we might push down even further, but then continue to trend riding up. Like the trend hasn't changed. You know, my bias hasn't changed when it comes to US 30 being bullish. Has the market been basically trying to wipe out buyers? Definitely. But this is the stuff that we've seen. We saw this stuff last year, and not to mention these patterns that the market has been creating is still playing out to that. I mentioned that I think yesterday, no, on market forecast that specifically NASDAQ. I know S&P has been riding that wave too, but NASDAQ has been riding the wave of that inverted head and shoulder that it created. US 32. And again, I've already talked about that. I suck at identifying this pattern, but when it presents itself and it's creating like the move, then I'm gonna stick to it. Like I wouldn't have been able to see this just like any other trader probably until we got somewhere up here. But by the time I got up here and the market did this slight pullback, yeah, I knew that we weren't coming back to this area because the pattern is telling you like the direction. So the trend remains the same. It's just don't get caught with your pants down on the pullback. Okay, so that's our first. So these are from this buy move, these are our first points of contact. So you got one, two. Now, obviously, price when if it decides to touch this area after breaking out, it could do a deeper retracement than than the line that we have. And what I mean is like this, you know, in theory. And then in the perfect world, we would expect this, but that's not like the reality of the market, right? Probably get your push up. Then when everybody's comfortable again, you know what I'm saying? But what I'm identifying is that it'll still be in representation to this trend. So the trend should remain the same, even if it does like a retracement, unless price tries to come all the way back down here to create support again, which that would be crazy. It just depends on how really indices are combating against oil. So if you look at oil, oil did rise up, yo, but look where it actually pushed back up to. I actually had the zone marked up. Not right here. I just drew this line this morning, but what is this? Our favorite pattern or whatever you want to call it to identify a gap in the market, right? Always annotate these, mark these up somehow. You know, we always identify them by like, if it's like small ones, we do purple circles. If it's like big gaps, we create zones off of that. So oil, you know, has basically been ranging. We discussed this like a couple weeks ago, maybe last month, that oil's probably going to range throughout this high and this low. The last move we had that price could possibly return to was this gap up here, right? So as we saw oil start to push down, what did we see from indices? We saw indices start to rise. So you saw US 30 rising, S&P rising, you saw NASDAQ rising. So you can obviously pinpoint that, okay, every time I see a reaction of oil, it's doing the opposite of what indices is doing. So it's like really take your pick, choose whatever indice that your account can handle. So from this point on, just paying attention to how oil is reacting, that's gonna not give you an accurate entry, but at least tell you the direction. So after we had this move yesterday, this was the move that forced indices down. And again, you can go back and see that, wow, man, oil shot all the way up here And as that happened yesterday, so the indices ended up dropping. But why did it come all the way back up here? Well, there was a gap that I was always wondering about. But again, I don't know how the market is going to react. I'm just going to be prepared for when it actually comes back to these areas to know how to respond. So I always had this area marked up for oil. This was a gap from April 7th. You can see price pushed back up here. This is the highest it pushed back up. So it's like we're we're like us as traders would be like, how could like there's no reason that the market should have done that. There's always a fucking reason why the market is doing that. We just catch it either late or not paying attention to these possible zones that the market can return to. So after it hit this gap, as you can see, since we started selling, what has indices been doing? Rising. We got another push right there. NASDAQ. Well, NASDAQ is falling right now. So is S&P. But between S&P, NASDAQ, and US 30, I think they're going to play catch up to US 30 because US 30 was doing like the opposite out of S&P and NASDAQ. So as S&P and NASDAQ was rising, US 30 was the one that was like actually trying to push down. So I think that NASDAQ and S&P are just actually moving in that market cycle where they're trying to correct in comparison to US 30. But I don't trade S&P or NASDAQ. So, but I do think that these are still buy entries. And what I'm saying is that I'm still looking at indices to rise, even though we have this like correction going on right here. But a lot of stuff is kind of determined by like how oil is reacting. And again, the Middle East is going to play a part. The war going on in the Middle East is going to play a part into that. I wouldn't stress trying to like pay attention too much to like what's going on, but more so the outcome. So when you're hearing these reports about, oh, the blockade is gonna, stay in place, or they're coming to agreements with the blockade, or they're reaching peace agreements, things like that. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, you're gonna see oil respond to that behavior, and then, like I said, we should see indices continue. But all this stuff was like I don't want to say premeditated, but predetermined. You know what I'm saying? Like we always talk about a digital ghost that the technicals are going to tell you the story, yo. The technicals every time are going to tell you what's going on. We said point A to point B. So for right now, our point B would be $50,000, 500. I mean 50K, 500, right? So exactly where price created this resistance at. So point A was at 44,650. Is that it? Let's just say 44,750. So that's our point A. This is our point B. Anything in between, we don't know like what may happen, but we know guaranteed point A and point B. You know what I'm saying? This is our point B because this is the last area that the market came from. So we know that price is most certainly heading up in that direction. You know what I'm saying? At that point, we have to create a new point A, point B. You know what I'm saying? But we talk about this all the time. Like the chaos is like in between this. This is all the retail traders, all this shit that goes on. This is all the retail traders. But we want to find ourselves either like right here, or like right here. Really, this area would have been good, but you would have taken that profit by then. But it's not really much to discuss because it's like all this stuff we've been talking about. You can go back and a lot of the videos that we have on YouTube and see that we've already made these predetermined notions. You know what I'm saying? Like not knowing, but still having the expectations because price is coming back to these zones. Like I don't know that if price is going to come back to the zone or not. But if it does, I'm gonna take action because I already have the zone marked up. Yeah, I figured S&P was gonna do something like that. So it's ranging right now, but still see that the trend is trying to be made because this is a high right now, right? When you're looking at each high in the market, start looking at the lower time frame highs, right? Oh, I could just use this one because it broke that. So I mark up highs by giving it a zone because it doesn't always go like straight into the high like how we would like. What I mean is that if we drew a level, like the perfect pullback, what we think the market is gonna do is like how it shot down and then pushed back here. And that was a high. That was definitely a high made, but just create a zone. I just create a zone instead because when you turn it to a candle, you can see that look where price came. I didn't even know that it was gonna match up to the zone, but it tested the high of the zone, so it still counts for that information right there. So yeah, you see how S&P, Nasdaq are catching up to US 30 now? They're ranging. US 30 should now be wanting the trend, and it is going. She is hot. She's a hot girl right now. So yeah, Nasdaq, S&P just trying to push out late buyers, but they're still ranging. But again, the last move that we had was one, specifically Nasdaq consolidation upward. We're still maintaining the trend, like we're still creating higher lows, right? Even if we drew another line to match up, wow, that's almost identical. Damn, I wasn't even looking for it to do that. But look what the data points are telling us. They're maintaining what? At least a trend right now. You know what I'm saying? We've pushed down a little bit lower, which we could break it unless price is trying to establish support right here. Unless NASDAQ is trying to test this area, price should be creating support right here. And that would be your buy zone. Easy peasy, beautiful cover girl, right? Yeah, I mean, really nothing much to go off of is that S&P has just been testing the high of this gap. But even if you didn't know that there was a gap here, just make it simple. This is consolidation. You back out, you scale out a little bit because the higher the time frame, the truer the direction. So basically anything on the higher time frame is going to make a lot more sense than you scale in to start finding like breaking it down piece by piece. But consolidation right here, we broke out of consolidation based off of what you learned as a trader. If it breaks out of consolidation, in theory, if it tests that area, whatever direction the consolidation broke out of, should want to test it and then continue in that direction, right? So, like I said, keep it simple. Consolidation, breakout, support being made unless we violate that, which we saw that price did push down, but also start to rise up. And this should be your move that carries you up. Unless, like we've always been saying, something comes out from the Middle East or Donald Trump says something. But yeah, that's really it, traders. Should be able to, you know, secure your profit by the end of the week. And what's crazy is that, I guess, or what's unfortunate is that these moves that we were projecting, it really took us like 2, 3 weeks for them to play out. But like I said, we've discussed this because like when prices starting to buy up now, it's going to be slower and it's going to throw these manipulation moves in order to one, push traders that's in profitable trades out, but also collect anybody that has a stop loss that either can't hang in a trade or jumped in a little bit too prematurely. But like I said, man, the proof is in the pudding. It's right here. The trend remains the same. The only thing is that currently right now, S&P and Nasdaq are consolidating. And that makes sense to me because they both created new highs. Like, and they made new highs like 3 times before they actually started ranging. And I'm still looking at this to play out. So I guess this whole move, if we really extended it, technically this is playing out, this whole move. But what is that? That's still consolidation pushing upward. If this is our support structure and this is the last move that price is making to push down, then it's definitely going to push a strong move to the upside. And then based off this move, what you'll get your pullback, kind of like how price was doing down here. After it breaks out, it'll probably go pretty high, and then price will want to come back and test that area to validate that we are continuing that direction. But the stage is set. I think everybody understands the assignment. Areas that we need to be looking for. Excuse me. Yeah, just manage your trading account. That's all it is. Don't forget to take profit on any of the moves that buy up because this is wild that S&P, they're reacting like US 30 did these past couple of weeks. So they might be going into a state where they're trying to range either to allow US 30 to kind of technically play catch up because US 30 out of the big three has been the only one that hasn't created a new high besides when we did create that resistance that was made at 50,500. So S&P, like I said, and NASDAQ could be playing that game where they're allowing US 30 to catch up and they're going to be ranging back and forth. But I think the stage is set for US 30. And then once we get back up here and possibly break this high, then we may have like a pullback. I think everybody should kind of expect that. Um, just because like I said, with S&P and NASDAQ already like creating new highs, it would be kind of normal for US 30 to create its high, create like two new highs, and then push all the way back down to match up with this trend. I'm not thinking that we'll push back down here, but anywhere in these areas, we got to see how the market reacts because these are areas that we already had marked up with zones from these 945 candles. So in theory, I would like to see these areas like, tested like on a pullback, but I mean, looking at the Hakanashis, looks like the momentum is pretty much set. Yeah, we got two strong Hakanashi candles. We got 3 hours till this 4 hour candle closes. Man, and it's only about to be 10:30. Let me see. 10:30 normally I look at 10:30 as like a continuation, or it can open up like for a pullback. But I think 10:30 would be a continuation. That's what I'm trying to see right now. If we're gonna get a continuation from here, or if price is gonna start to stall out. See that? Yep, that's gonna buy up from there. S&P is doing the same. Previous high. Even if you don't identify it, I mean, even if you don't like mark it up, be able to identify it. Like, don't be shocked when you see the market drops and it's like, well, why did it do that? Like, make it simple. It's to a line chart. It's a high. Broke out of that high. What should the market do in theory? Come back, test that high. If it's buying up, if we were selling, it should break down and come back and test the low. Super simple. I'm not saying I'm not saying it is simple, but it's like don't always like react to what the market is like doing and you haven't been analyzing it as it's creating more data. That's what I always stress about. Still analyzing the charts as it's moving forward. If you got the time. I know some other traders may not have the time just because of like how your day is set up, but you got the time. Well, I think that's where alerts come in. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off topic. That pretty much closes our day traders. As we see, 1030 is continuing on the trend. So just be careful. We have news tomorrow. I forgot what we have tomorrow. Let me see real quick. I know there's a bunch of news tomorrow. Next week will be non-farm payrolls. Hold on. ISM Mint, so the PMI data for April is going to be at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So that's like the most volatile news we have besides like the euro has something at 3:30 a.m. So yeah, just manage your trade properly. Like I said, the stage is set. 1030 is continuing the trend, so just be careful. I don't think that we'll get a pullback today. And if we do, it'll happen like probably like closer to noon. But don't get crazy. Still enter, take your profit, re-enter. But like I said, I think this thing probably by the end of the week will be back up to the high. We can get that today, that'll be awesome. But tomorrow, yeah, I think that news might push us all the way back up to the high, and then it's up from here. Clear skies from here. But that's all I got, traders. I'll catch you on the next video with Digital Goats Academy. That'll be Sunday. We may open up Sunday's weekly review. We may do a live for it, so just be in preparation for that, YouTube. Everybody else, you know what to do, my community. But I'm Antoine Farrar as always. I hope everybody has a successful trading day. I hope y'all had a successful trading week, and I hope y'all ready for what the market is about to bring this year, yo. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.